Hello and welcome to the Growth Mode Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Matt Masur, the founder of Growth Mode Technologies, your local IT department. And in a few minutes, you're about to hear me interview a very interesting member of the community. Could be a business owner, could be an influencer, could be some guy off the street. You're going to have to stick around to find out. But first, let's talk a little bit about our company, Growth Mode Technologies, your local IT department. We're a business-to-business technology services company that exists to make local businesses better using technology. We're not your traditional break fix, only show up when something's wrong type of IT services company. We are a true technology partner that's dedicated to making your business better because we understand that our business only grows when yours does. If you're interested in learning about how to make yourself better and potentially even save some money in the process, visit our website at localitdepartment.com. And now, without further ado, let's jump into the interview. Hey, folks, welcome back to the Growth Mode Conversations podcast. I got an awesome guy here. This guy does some really interesting and needed, I guess I would say almost unfortunately needed, but needed services in the community. But as we do on the show, I like to let the guest introduce themselves. So please, sir, tell us who you are. What do you do?
All right. Hi. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me on the
Absolutely.
So I'm John Tumino. I'm the co-founder of In My Father's Kitchen. I'm also the executive director. And In My Father's Kitchen is a not-for-profit that I started that engages the chronically homeless of Central New York. These are folks that are living in places not meant for human habitation. That's my group. In the woods, abandoned houses, in a shack, under a bridge. We go to these individuals with direct services. So we're bringing, whether it's food, supplies, medical attention, and then connections to service providers within our community. So we're kind of like the connecting piece for friends. We call them friends that are outdoors trying to get connected to services.
Oh, wow. So you go right out into these different places you described, I'm guessing, to find these folks, to meet them and things of that nature?
Yeah, so it all started in 2011 when I had an encounter with an individual standing on an off-ramp holding a cardboard sign. I was running a successful restaurant in Central New York. I also wear a spiritual component to my life. I'm a clergy as well. So it's kind of a place where my faith intersected with my natural vocation as a chef. And I had this encounter with a guy holding a sign, and I told him he wasn't invisible. I gave him a lunch, and he started to unpack his life story to me on an off-ramp for 20 minutes. And I left that encounter a changed person and left restaurant world behind to start this not-for-profit with my wife and started it out of our house.
Wow.
And it's all because I heard a guy's story. And I heard the story behind the cardboard sign, and it impacted me. I felt like I needed to do something.
That's incredible. So In My Father's Kitchen, the name of the organization, obviously implies there's a lot of food involved here.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about, what you do and how you serve these folks like that.
Yeah, so I'm going to go way back. So I'm a first-generation American. My parents were immigrants to the country in 1963.
Wow.
So food was always really instrumental in my background, different kinds of foods. And I realized as a young man that food was a powerful tool to make friends.
Sure.
So a lot of my friends would want to come over to my house to eat these wonderful different kinds of meals. And so I used food my whole life, whether it was in restaurant world, to make connections with people, to gain customers. And now we're using food, me as a chef, and using that talent to bring out ratcheted up meals to folks living outside. So steak sandwiches, linguine Alfredo, stuffed pepper, lasagnas, things that individuals that are living outside aren't going to get. And it's about bringing value and dignity through food.
Sure.
And so food is just a vehicle that I use to make the introduction and start to build a relationship.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you started at home. I'm guessing that alludes to you've grown out of your home now, right?
Yes. So 12 years ago, so when I left that encounter, I go home and I say to my wife, I think I know what we're supposed to do. And then I just felt like, well, how am I going to do this? And I just felt like just use what you have in your hands. I had a kitchen in my house, I had a car, and then I had talent as a chef. So we started doing it the next week. And now here we are 12 years later, staff of 14. We have a piece of property where our office space is on Holly Ave.
Wow.
And we're out there every day doing the work.
So your staff, what are they doing for you? Are they cooking as well? Are they doing the outreach, all of the above?
That's a great question. So for me, that scratched my itch as a chef. That's my kind of little thing that gives me like feeling like purpose in regards to my calling. So I do all the cooking on the days that we do street outreach. Today, we have a work van called Higher Ground that's out as we're speaking. There's 9 individuals on a day labor program that we started with the county of Onondaga. So we have 9 folks that are panhandling today. They're actually working for their keep. They get compensated at the end of the day.
Oh,
There's
wow.
3 staffers on that van, 2 care managers and the driver who's the supervisor of the project that day. And then on street outreaches, we have Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we have 2 care managers that go out to the streets. And we do follow-up care based on our engagement that we have with the folks under bridges. And then the last group of staffers, there's about 8 of them, and we have a house called Life House that we help women escaping human trafficking. So we have 2 women residing in a home that we have, and there's staff 24/7.
Mhm.
So there's a staff of 8 there.
Wow. That's really incredible. Obviously, you've got a bunch of these different things, different programs and things that have evolved, I'm guessing, from the original mission.
Yeah.
I guess what came first beyond that, just initial outreach, some of these different things that you're
Yeah. So one of the amazing things that, like, when I started doing this, you got a guy who's just an entrepreneur running a restaurant. All of a sudden now I'm doing social work, right?
Yeah.
And so I had to learn and navigate the landscape. In the very beginning, no one knew who we were. We had no connections to anybody in the community until we lost our first individual. Michelle was murdered on an off-ramp over by Dinosaur Barbecue. She was beat up and found dead. And that story was put in the paper and connected us to that woman. And that kind of took the cover off of what we do to the
Wow.
community. And then we got invited. Now we're part of the Homeless and Housing Coalition of Central New York. There's 50 providers in that coalition. We're the outreach component of it, as well as rescue mission. And so for me, it's now been gaining like connections and networking, kind of like just finding out how the landscape looks and then helping our friends get connected to that.
Okay. So that kind of leads right into the next thing I was going to ask you, is that how does your organization work, combine, get along with
Yeah.
all these other community organizations that sort of serve different pieces of that community?
Yeah. So the wonderful, it's the Housing and Homeless Coalition of Central New York.
I didn't realize there was actually an organization
Yeah. And
of organizations, I
yeah,
guess.
and there's a monthly meeting of all those providers, but then there's sub meetings like the outreach component. There's like a coordinated entry component. There's different subgroups, right? So for how it works is we're the outreach component of it, and all we do is like make the referrals.
Sure.
So we build this rapport with our friends outside. We call them friends, not clients. We get them to trust us, tell us their story, and then we try to encourage them and help them navigate to whether it's substance abuse treatment, mental health treatment, getting into housing.
Gotcha.
If they agree to go down the housing route, there's a packet that we need to do of an intake form, and that gets them ready, paperwork ready to get onto a list for housing, and then we present that to the coalition. So
That's
we're
great.
like this nuts and bolts, like straight on the ground, boots on the ground outreach.
So all these organizations, they're not in any way really in competition with each other. You're all kind of working in concert, your different pieces
Yes.
that you can bring to the table.
Yeah, collaboration is huge, right? So we do what we do well. That's the outreach part of it.
Yeah.
I'm not the housing guy, so I'm going to
Sure.
connect you to the housing provider, but I have to have that relationship with the provider
Right.
as well. So yeah, we just do what we do well.
Wow. Tell me a little bit about that actual work. So how are you received in these communities?
Yeah.
Or at least initially anyway, I guess, when you first find a spot where there's folks are camping out.
Yeah. So, well, now it's 12 years. We got street cred. So
Sure.
mostly everybody knows who we are. And then we're getting referrals from some homeless friends to other homeless friends.
Sure.
Right? But in the very beginning, I call it first contact. You don't know me. I don't know you. We kind of come up on you. But I have this wonderful meal. So the meal is really, I've never have had anyone say, no, I don't want it, because of the fact of what we're bringing. And when I
Yeah.
open up the container, you got a lasagna in there.
Sure.
And then if I just go off the
It's hard to be angry with somebody like that, right?
Yeah, but if you don't open, like I might give you the lasagna and then I notice that you're quiet and you're not talking, I'm not going to force an issue
Sure.
because I know I'm going to see you again. So it's consistency over time. So it's just, hey man, here's who we are. This is what we do. Here's the lunch for you. I got some supplies for if you need it, like hand wipes, hand warmers, gloves, hats, all that stuff. And then they'll take those things and then I'll see them again in a couple of days. And then we just go from there. And then as the relationship goes, their guard goes down.
Sure.
That's when we hear the story.
You just build that rapport and they
Yes.
know that you're trustworthy and
Yeah.
not out to get them. What do you think out of all the things that you or even the other organizations do? What's the most effective? What's the thing that you think if you could pick one thing to really double down on out of all these efforts, what would generally help them the most?
The relationship. Like,
Okay.
so that's why we use the word friends. So like we really commit to them understanding that we're really there for them, like in building trust with them. And that only happens by building this relationship, right? So it's kind of like in business, you build relationships with your clients.
Sure.
And they keep coming back to you because they trust you, right?
Right.
And that's how we do it on the street. Like I'm bringing my customer service skill set that I learned in restaurant world, and I'm kind of applying it in the human services realm.
Mm-hmm.
And our friends outside, they know when someone's legit. You know when someone's BSing you or not. And
Sure.
we're just truthful with them, and we don't hold punches. It's like we're doing straight talk with them, and they honor that, and we honor them. And next thing you know, the relationship flourishes and change happens.
Wow. For folks that aren't in depth in this world and really understanding it, can you explain a little bit about, why are some of these folks even there? Why are they in this position?
That's a great question. So, because a lot of people have disdain towards folks that are homeless
Sure.
and addicts and things of that nature. So, one of the things that I've learned over the years in regards to the stories is trauma. A lot of childhood trauma, things that have happened in people's pasts that go unresolved, suppressed, and then they're looking to escape that feeling, whether it's anxiety, depression, and then they cross over into the drug world, right? It might start up with a low-level thing like weed, and next thing you know, it's crack, and next thing you know, they're shooting a needle of heroin, and now they're off to the races and they're addicted. Once the substances get inside of you, then people don't understand, you just can't quit. Like you just can't stop when
Sure.
you got something screaming in your body saying, I need to fix, right?
Yeah.
And most of our folks outside, it's not like they're always getting like high to have fun. It's just maintaining so you don't feel sick.
Right.
So it's this broken psychological thing that's happening in individuals that cause them to go down this road. Now, that's my group. Now, there's people in shelters. A husband lost a job, families in the shelter, guys trying to bounce back off that happens.
Sure.
My group is not that. My group that stays outside is 95% addiction, untreated mental health. These are folks that are hardcore broken, right? And so they won't even go to shelter.
Yeah.
So that's my group, and that's the trauma. It's all about trauma that's happened in the past, and it's unresolved, and they're trying to medicate themselves.
So you mentioned some of the different resources. Are there some resources that can help them at this point get through those things?
Yeah. But they got to be willing. One of the
Right.
challenges for us is like, I can't supersede your free will
Sure.
to make a good decision. Like I know what Matt might need to do, but I can't make Matt do it.
Right.
So my job is to keep coming, keep loving him with a no strings approach until the day of surrender happens. I don't know when that is.
Yeah.
Everyone's different. But I want to be standing there when you finally say, John, I need your help. And that's only going to happen because you trust us and I didn't pressure you, right?
Sure.
But I just got a call this morning that one of our friends passed. They found him in the street dead. And I don't know the details yet, but he's number 73. 73 people have died that I've met over the last 12 years.
Wow.
In situations of either ODing, getting hit by vehicles, dying in an abandoned house fire, being murdered. You're very vulnerable living
Sure.
outside. So to me, it's like, that's heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. But that's also, what drives you, I guess, to some degree, right? To have less and less of those stories.
Yeah,
and
the fuel in my tank is the death. So I use those like today I wept, right? So to me, I use that as like this fuel. Like this is life and death out here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We got to keep going. We got to keep reaching out. Well, we've had 365 folks come off the streets and into housing. So there's success as well, but there's heartbreak a lot of time as well.
Well, it sounds to me, though, that success number was quite a bit higher than the number of folks who have passed.
Yeah. And then success going in. So
and that's got to feel good, right?
Yeah. Well, so getting someone indoors is great, but if they don't change their behavior, what's going on outside goes inside. So it's even navigating them once they're housed to services too, because we are committed to stay with you 6 months into your housing so you don't recidivize. And then that's coaching them and trying to get them to engage providers so that they can be a whole person.
Wow. We got a couple minutes more. I want to hear a little bit more about this work program that you mentioned just briefly. Tell us a little bit about how that goes. What do they do? And that
so that's a great question. So one of the things that we learned is when we got folks indoors, they still started they still were panhandling because they were still using, right? So they needed money for their substances. So my wife and I was thinking about how we could help them, and we thought of a day, like, how do we get them to do work for the day and compensate them, and they don't have to panhandle. And it was like a 3-year journey. And finally, in partnership with Onondaga County, we got this program launched, and it's called Higher Ground, HIRE, but it's a play on words, bringing someone higher.
Okay.
So it's an alternative to panhandling. And so they're on the van today, and we do community projects, whether it's state projects, county projects, city projects, picking up litter, cleaning up at the fairgrounds, cleaning up at the amphitheater, going down to the on center and cleaning up, shoveling sidewalks. So they get breakfast, they get a lunch. It's 5 hours with us. They get paid cash, a stipend at the end of the day. So they got money in their pocket. Now they worked for it by the sweat of their brow, the work of their hands, giving them dignity. But the case management that happens in 5 hours is great. So I might have a 10-minute encounter with you on outreach, but now you're on this van in a small community for 5 hours. Lots of conversation happens, and lots of change happens on that van too.
Wow. That's a really neat program. I love that. I love any of those community programs. Honestly, I've always thought that was a great way for all kinds of groups of people just to have that connection with the community.
Right.
You know, even at all levels, just to, I made that park a little nicer. And, I think that's a valuable thing.
Well, and it's even navigating them from that work program to employment. So we've gotten 15 people that finally got on track, and we navigated them from the van to employers within the community, right? So the real thing is to get someone viable again. Like, how do we get you back on the grid? And it takes time.
Sure.
It's a hard work, and it's
I can imagine.
Heavy lift, but it's well worth it.
That's awesome. You're doing great work.
Thanks.
I love to hear about that. Tell folks how they can support your work. What can other
so
people
the
do?
best way you can support us, you can visit our website at myfatherskitchen.org. If you feel like you want to financially support us, you could support us with technology, like being a reoccurring monthly giver would be awesome, or sending in a check to us. You could engage with us by bringing items to us. On Fridays, our storefronts open on Hawley Ave, 501 Hawley Ave in Syracuse, 13203. You could drop off items that we're collecting. Like right now, we didn't really have a winter this year, so we're starting to transition to spring items. So we're going to be putting out a plea for like sneakers and jeans and T-shirts, so you can bring physical items to us as well. And every once in a while, we have opportunities for physical volunteering, and that happens at special events, and that could be another way that you connect with us.
Okay, that's wonderful. Tell us a little bit more about these meals before we go, because I think this is cool. I really love that. I think you mentioned it. You mentioned, bringing them dignity. And I think that's, you think of so many things. You think of food banks and can drives. Yeah. It's like, there's only so many beans that, sure, you might survive, but to bring up that mood a little bit, what a meal can do for you. A home-cooked one.
Well, we're here on a Monday morning, and the Super Bowl was yesterday, and I'm sure everyone was somewhere with chicken wings and pizza, having fun right around food. Thanksgiving time food, so food is a big deal. So for me, it's like planning a menu the night before, going shopping the morning of, bringing those fresh ingredients back to the building, creating that meal for our friends outside, and then bringing them out. So like, I'm not doing hundreds of meals, I'm doing dozens. So it's just me in this intimate time. It scratches the itch for me of cooking. And I just think of the folks that are going to be getting the meals. I do some social media posts of what we're serving that day. And usually I get comments like, oh, I'll go under the bridge for that. I'm like, no, you don't want to go under the bridge. But it's like making those awesome meals for me brings like satisfaction to me that I'm doing something for someone to fill their belly with something nutritious, but then also something that gives them, like you said, dignity, right? Like, yes, you deserve a steak sandwich, or you deserve lasagna. It's not just peanut butter and jelly and bologna sandwich.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I like a good bologna sandwich, but I'd rather have a steak sandwich.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. Do you usually know who they're going to? Do you have kind of a similar crowd, or do you make what you estimate are enough?
Yeah, so based on the season, summertimes our numbers go way up.
Sure.
So it could be up to 100 lunches in a week. And then in the wintertime, it could go down when there was a lot of snow, it could go down to like 20 lunches, right? So for me, wintertime makes it more intimate. Summertime is like you're cranking out numbers. But no, we do a circuit through the city. I have a route that we go through. We know where the campsites are, where people are living in abandoned buildings. And we go visit those friends. Or then we might meet someone new and they tell us, hey, I'm staying over here. And that's how we find camps.
I see.
Right? Like to me, the campsites are like there's a campsite in Wide Waters Parkway right now, which you wouldn't think there's a guy living in a tent there with a generator. in the middle of a financial district.
Right.
You would never, like, you drive by, people drive by these things all the time and don't realize they're in
That's
plain
incredible.
sight, right? Surviving.
Yeah. Wow.
And I found that out through another word of mouth. That's how I found that guy's campsite.
See, that's that network that you need to serve that community. You really got to be
Yeah.
hands-on, boots on the ground, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and people in the community thanking you to let me bring awareness, because these are people. This is somebody's family member out there, right? If it was your family member out there, would you want me showing up? The answer is yes.
Right.
But if it's not your family, sometimes we kind of don't want to look at it. Right?
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And that's why it's great to have folks like you and a whole coalition locally. It's sort of, it's one of those things we wish we didn't have the need for it, but because we do, it's phenomenal that we have folks like you that have dedicated yourself and given up serving people like me in a fancy restaurant now to serving these folks who, like I said, a good meal and a friend that they can count on is a lot better than
and I say also,
anything
I appreciate you saying the kind words about me going out and all that, but one of my mantras is like, I'm your hands extended. Like, you can't, I'm not expecting you to go under the bridge, but when you bring resources to me or finances to me, I become your hands extended. We're out there together, building hope and changing lives.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
John, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, telling everybody what you do, and thank you for everything that you do. We're going to put obviously the links and everything will be in the description and all that, so folks can jump in and follow you on all the social medias. We just had a quick conversation, just for a little side note, about a recent story of yours, a post on social media that's getting a lot of traction. So folks may notice that and may even recognize you from seeing that before they see this. But anything that you can do to share the message, any of these organizations that folks are a fan of, they see them doing good work. The like is nice. The share is even better.
Yeah.
Spread that message to other folks. It costs you $0.
Yeah. And if you're watching this, I would say, if maybe you have a family member or your boss or someone that you feel wants to get engaged in the community, share this podcast link with them so they could see Matt interviewing me and telling the story. I'd be appreciated.
So many great things to talk about that you have going on. And we'll have you back again and do some more of that.
Thank you, sir.
I think we'll call it a day for today and let you get back to doing your thing. So thank you, folks, for joining us on the Growth Mode Conversations podcast. We'll catch you next time.